If you ever knew a very skinny, greasy-haired kid in high school, then he probably knew how to do a Gollum impression. There's one Gollum impression that everyone knows how to do, and it all stemmed from one person, Andy Serkis. There's been a lot of talk about the Lord of the Rings adaptation from the early 2000s that was directed by Peter Jackson. They were very good movies, but they have become such a definitive aesthetic for the Lord of the Rings universe that some people are dissatisfied that they have become the default design choice for the Lord of the Rings. So much so that there are people who are fans of pre-Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings aesthetics. But there's a reason in particular that these films have become such iconic pillars of aesthetic and design in this universe, mostly just because they're really good. Not to mention the fact that a whole bunch of IP material, video games, audiobooks, external products came along with it. There's a reason in particular that the Gollum voice itself became so iconic, and that's because of Andy Serkis' performance. Without his expertise, Gollum would not be the character that he is today. He's been recognized as one of the most iconic characters in film, and that is because Andy Serkis' performance was so complete and definitive.
Master doesn't like you, Master doesn't get you.
Which, along with the people obsessed with pre-Jackson Tolkien aesthetic, has given rise to people obsessed with pre-Jackson Gollum designs. When The Hobbit first came out, there wasn't a description of what Gollum looked like, and there was a whole plethora of varying Gollum designs, some like a frog-like creature, some like a very large, towering black ghoul, until Tolkien himself edited The Hobbit so that it had a physical description, what he had in his mind. Regardless of this, Andy Serkis' performance as Gollum is very unique and differs quite clearly from Tolkien's own description of it. If you don't know, J.R.R. Tolkien, who was the writer of The Hobbit and the Lord of the Rings books, he actually read excerpts from the books in his own voice, and he does the Gollum voice, which is, although close to Andy Serkis' performance, is still like very unique.
Blesses and splashes, my precious. I guess it's a choice feast.
But it's very significant that Andy Serkis' iteration of the character is as iconic as it is, even though there is an entire recording of Tolkien reading this character for himself. That's why I wanted to talk today about my favorite actor, Andy Serkis. If you think about Andy Serkis right now, that is the beginning of May 2026, you're going to think of the infamous Animal Farm movie starring Seth Rogen. Andy Serkis is also performing in it, but it's very important to note that he is the director of it, which brings up a very strange series of events concerning Andy Serkis in the most recent years. We'll get to that in a second. Following the success of the Lord of the Rings trilogy from 2001 to 2003, Andy Serkis had a whole line of motion capture performances, mostly because his performance as Gollum was not just definitive to the character of Gollum, but it was kind of laying the groundwork for how motion capture performances are supposed to be. His physicality and commitment to giving reference to what eventually would be the animator's job of creating this character really was the foundation for how motion capture performances would go on moving forward. And although they haven't caught on as significantly as something like video games, they're still an important staple of computer-generated work today. Bringing up video games, pretty much any AAA game with significant voice acting and in-depth cutscene development use motion capture technology and performances. And although the technology has increased significantly since The Lord of the Rings came out, it's really Andy Serkis' performance as Gollum which laid the groundwork for how actors can work under these conditions, where they're in a leotard or some sort of skin-tight suit, and what they're really doing is just giving a reference to how the animators are going to create the character later. When you think of the early 2000s, there are a few that came up that were really significant characters. Davy Jones in the Pirates of the Caribbean was a complete motion capture performance. The visuals of this character combined with the performance were so good that it gave the Pirates of the Caribbean franchise an Oscar for Best Visual Effects. I think specifically for this character alone. I mean, you see all the details from the face twitches and the way that his tentacles move, and it is a gargantuan effort by the entire VFX team centered around this one performance. And I don't think it would have happened without Andy Serkis. Now, I can talk all day about Andy Serkis's impact to motion capture technology and performances. I could even mention, like I did in a short of mine, how without Andy Serkis's performance as Gollum, the Avatar franchise would not have been started. James Cameron, the director of Titanic and The Terminator and the Avatar films, wanted to develop the first Avatar movie in 1999, 2 years after Titanic came out, but the computer technology just wasn't there. He didn't see any plausibility that it could be made the way that he wanted. And it wasn't until 2002 when he saw Andy Serkis as Gollum that he realized that not only were the visuals what he needed to make his film, but the technology in order to capture the performances he wanted was also there in order to give a humanity to it, which I think is one of the core elements that made Avatar such an engaging film to watch, because it wasn't just beautiful visually with amazing worlds completely computer generated, but the performances are so grounded in the actors who portray them. And part of that is because Andy Serkis was able to portray a character so well in the Lord of the Rings trilogy that James Cameron realized that his characters could also be portrayed the same way. That's simply just one major impact that Andy Serkis has had. Apart from this, and in kind of more recent years, he's had more experience in front of the camera without any computer-generated assistance. I know his performance in season 1 of Andor, people loved that, and that was just him in a costume, and his performance was still fantastic. He was in The Batman as Alfred Pennyworth, and I think he was a real highlight in that movie. And I think his consistency as an actor in those two separate, non-motion capture characters really solidify his ability to know a character and give a strong performance, whether he is assisted by computer technology or not. Which brings the question, why is he such a bad director? Andy Serkis' directorial debut happened, I think, in 2017 with a live-action Jungle Book adaptation, which received middling reviews. And he went on to direct a few more films. One was Venom 2, which he directed but did not perform in. One was a drama with Andrew Garfield that got okay reviews, and now is a family film that is getting horrible reviews, Animal Farm. How can someone who is so good at giving a performance that has worked with really good directors, I mean, you think another one of Andy Serkis's iconic characters is Caesar from the Planet of the Apes trilogy that came out in the 2010s. His performance as Caesar was hailed. People loved it. And in those films, he worked with Matt Reeves, who he also worked with in The Batman. He worked with Peter Jackson, who is a fantastic director despite having bad conditions imposed on him. He's worked with him multiple times. Also, the fact that he's worked with these directors over multiple films. He worked with Peter Jackson in Lord of the Rings, in The Hobbit. He also worked with him in the King Kong movie, providing motion capture performances for King Kong. And along with being Alfred Pennyworth, which was also directed by Matt Reeves, he was Caesar in all of the Planet of the Apes movies. It gives a good indication that he's really easy to work with. Films are essentially group projects, and if you've ever worked on a group project before, you know that if you worked with someone that was really a dud, you didn't want to work with them anymore. But if they were good to work with, you went back to them because they're easy to work with. Another thing that I think people forget to realize is that if someone is easy to work with, it oftentimes surpasses their preference in terms of if they are good at their job. Another director that I know is easy to work with, though his quality is very bad, would be, what's his name? Sean somebody. The director of Deadpool vs. Wolverine, or Deadpool and Wolverine. He's directed plenty of films, and they're all just like okay. He directed the Night at the Museum. He directed Free Guy. He directed Deadpool and Wolverine. He's directing a new Star Wars movie. The reason that he's getting all these jobs is not because he's a good director, but it's because he brings his projects in on time and under budget, and studios like that. When it comes to a studio investing in a project like that, they want to make sure that they're not risking too much money, or at least more money than they think they are going to risk. Which is why they keep going to, I cannot remember his name, Sean. They keep going to Sean because he's a very reliable director. I don't know for sure, but I'm pretty sure someone interviewed him, or someone asked him, and he's aware that he's not a significant director, and he knows that studios come to him because he's reliable when it comes to time and money. But he knows that he's not like a Scorsese or a Spielberg or a Nolan who spend extravagant budgets. Nolan's different. Nolan also comes in under budget, but he's also just a very talented director. But he keeps things in budget and on schedule, and studios like that. If I were to pin down a reason why Andy Serkis keeps getting to direct these films, despite the films not being very good, is probably because he's very efficient. He's probably easy to work with. The fact that he's worked with multiple directors over different projects is a strong indicator that he's easy to work with. The fact that he's kind of gone through different genres and different studios is a sign also that he's probably just available and he's willing to work on things. Another thing about directors that I'm starting to learn more about is that a lot of the directors get the job because a film needs a director in order to just direct the production. Duh. What I mean by that is that not every production has this passionate writer-director behind the project that really believes in the story and feels like it needs to be told. The Animal Farm movie was going to be made whether Andy Serkis was attached or not, but they wanted him because he's a recognizable name and he's reliable when it comes to budget and time. The Venom 2 movie was going to be made whether Andy Serkis was directing or not, but he was there willing to work on it, which is honestly a reason why I respect him a lot as a industry professional, is that he's willing to commit and work hard on any project that is given to him. I am of the opinion that a film can really only be as good as its source material, and that comes down to basically its screenplay. If you have a bad screenplay, if you have a bad story, then the film is going to turn out bad. You can have fantastic visuals and you can have great acting, but if the story is not there, it's going to turn out bad. And I think Andy Serkis has just not been too picky about the story, and he's just does these jobs because they need someone to work with him. He's obviously worked with great material before as an actor. He's worked with multiple Oscar-winning directors. He worked with Peter Jackson. People forget that he was in Ryan Coogler's Black Panther film, and he worked with Ryan Coogler, who's also an Oscar-winning screenwriter, and I think will soon be an Oscar-winning director in the years to come. He worked with Spielberg in Tintin. He was the main character, and he gave a fantastic performance, completely motion capture. He's worked with multiple Oscar-winning directors. He's definitely had influence. He knows how they act. So the fact that he is able to have this prolific career and chooses to help these films that just need directors, I think is a pretty honorable thing. I don't think he's stepping down to do it. Point being, he knows how a good film is supposed to look. And I think he knows that the films that he gets aren't going to be fantastic, but the fact that he works hard to make sure that they get out there anyway, and the fact that he's proud of them and not hiding his face from them, I respect the guy for it. I respect the guy. I mean, you see him out here promoting Animal Farm. He's excited about it. He's really standing up for it, and he's fulfilling the entertainment rule of don't let your audience know that you think the project you're working on is bad. You have to convince your audience that you think you are giving them the greatest show they could possibly give. And that's what Andy Serkis is up to all the time. So apart from him just being a fantastic performer in all of these incredible films, he also just seems like he's a very steady, competent, reliable filmmaker. He's no Scorsese, he's no Spielberg, who have also had their fair share of duds, but who are just have a quality of being very choosy with what they choose to support. But when it comes down to it, I'm willing to bet that he's offered these projects and he's willing to work with them because he's just like happy to be a director in some places. And seeing that he's been in multiple projects with these directors also indicates to me that he's just pleasant to work with. So when it comes down to it, I know he's not the most iconic actor out there. He's not a Leonardo DiCaprio. He's not Timothée Chalamet. He's not even Robert Pattinson or Denzel Washington. But his impact on the film industry with his performances, along with just kind of his general work ethic, makes me really respect the guy. And it's the reason that Andy Serkis is my favorite actor. And it's also just because I like being unique. Andy Serkis directs bad movies. I don't think that makes him necessarily a bad director. It might be a paycheck thing, but honestly, directing the Animal Farm movie with Seth Rogen, distributed by Angel Studios, he knew that it was not going to be a huge box office hit. But he chose to do it, and I respect the guy for it. And given that I'm already biased towards his performances, and seeing the record that he has with different directors kind of shows me that he's a nice guy. And also, he just gives fantastic performances. Have you seen the guy? That's why Andy Serkis is my favorite actor. He's great at acting. He's getting better at directing. I'd love to see him actually get a project that's good. I have only seen Venom 2. That's the only film that he's directed that I've seen. So I get to see more of what his directing style is. Maybe I'll watch it and then I'll come back and I'll absolutely hate the guy. I hope not. Comment down below what your favorite actor is and why, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye. That was cringe.